Welcome back to the show. I'm here with Jeremy Ginsburg, and he has gone from drowning in pain every single day to writing it. And we'll talk about his mind-blowing story about how he's broken through 2 years of daily chronic migraines and headaches to launch 2 businesses. And also what he learned from going 18 days with deliberately not eating food. It wasn't like he was locked in a cage. He was consciously choosing not to eat. And also the lessons he's learned on running a business while dealing with chronic pain in his body and mental pain, whether that's stress, anxiety, depression, insomnia, or worrying, all of which he's had at one time or another, and how he became a friend with pain and allowed it to become his greatest teacher. And we'll also look at the mind versus the heart and which is best to live from and why. So welcome, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. It is a pleasure to be here.
Yeah, and in case you don't know him, he's the co-founder of Ginsburg Expeditions. They've got a digital detox camp in Brazil in a couple of months. And he's been an entrepreneur and digital nomad for 4 years. And he does intuitive business coaching, creativity, and helps people move their businesses from their head to their heart.
You make it sound so elegant.
It is elegant when I say it. So I've known you for quite a few years now, and for a lot of that time, you've just been like laid out. You know, literally couldn't move from the bed because you've had these debilitating headaches. Or other times you had the debilitating headaches and you kind of managed to keep on going. But like pretty much every day, you had a headache or a migraine or some other crap going on.
Yeah, and I mean, I'm very grateful for you. I remember that's initially how we met. You gave me some techniques to connect to the light, and I remember talking to you thinking, wow, like I'm in so much pain. And you say, well, where's the pain at? I was like, all right, 6 out of 10. And then you say, what would it take to get it to a 5 out of 10? And at the time, I remember having so much resistance to that because it's like, I want you to make the pain go away. I don't want more homework. But now 2 years later, here we are, and I'm using a similar strategy just to take it, one step at a time. And I feel like that's a great lesson for everybody in any situation. Just like, what would it take to feel a little bit better? I feel like society often wants to like wave a magic wand and have all their problems go away, but that's not necessarily the case. So what would it take has been a big instrument for my healing. And I just want to thank you for introducing me to that.
You're welcome. I mean, I'm on a mission to have every entrepreneur use what would it take to not only solve their health problems, but their business problems. If you have your accounting or bookkeeping is like a bit sucky right now, it's, whatever, a 6 out of 10, and you want to get it to improve to a 7 out of 10, what would it take?
Yeah.
Because you might not be able to make a magic wand for that either.
Right. I think the whole world can use it. I think it's a beautiful way of taking, a physical, like a mental stress or, emotional problem. And it's like, all right, let's put it into action. Let's actually take action and turn it into a result instead of just complaining and focus on this shitty situation or this painful part of our lives.
Of course, that's easier said than done if you're like lying in bed with a mind-splitting headache. So tell us about how you broke through some of the things you've done. And also that you've launched 2 businesses while you've had this health challenge.
Yeah, so it was definitely a journey, but I would say the main turning points for me was, 1, acceptance, just kind of like surrendering, be like, okay, I'm in this position. Like I'm not going to resist anymore because I'm already in so much pain. So there's this level of accepting what is and then taking best action. I think there's this deeper rooted level of self-love and just like loving myself no matter where I'm at. And I know that sometimes sounds cheesy or fishy, but to me, to be able to look at myself and kind of treat myself as if I were my own cub or my own child and just have those loving thoughts, even when I'm in so much pain, when I'm wanting to escape and running away from myself, that's been huge. But also, I've just met so many amazing teachers, doctors, healers along the way. I have an amazing support group. I'm working with a coach who's taught me this beautiful meditation technique that taught me to go into the pain. And basically I've just accepted that, like, this is a journey, this is a dance. It's not something I just snap my fingers and it goes away. It's something that I'm constantly working through, that I'm learning to enjoy. And as soon as I started to love the pain and embrace it, magical things started happening.
So tell us how you love the pain, because a lot of people who have pain, whether it's physical pain or it's something in their business that they don't like, the idea that they could love that aspect of themselves or their business is a little hard to believe.
Yeah, it's definitely tough. And it took me a while, maybe even a year and a half. But I believe that that which you resist persists. So whether
Mm.
you're in physical pain in your back or your shoulder, or have a headache, or even you're stressed out, if you're thinking, oh, I'm stressed out, I got to get rid of this, then really you're just feeding that belief. You're feeding those thoughts. You're giving it more light. And a lot of times energy flows where consciousness goes. So if you're resisting it, then you're kind of like letting it live. Where if you start loving it, oftentimes it goes away, or it's just that slight change in perspective where you get out of that negative loop of, oh, I'm in pain, this sucks, I'm resisting, I don't want to be in pain, oh, I hate myself because I'm in pain, and now I'm in more pain. And it's just this negative cycle. As soon as you say, oh, I feel pain, but I love the pain, then it's just this, like, you break free, and all of a sudden you have this opportunity to make progress and actually feel better.
Yeah, and I think there's a difference between loving something and wanting it in your life. You know, I can love a child, but I don't want them to be, you know, doing a certain behavior. So the same with the pain. I can love the pain, but I may not want it kind of hammering on my head.
Right. A
I mean,
lot of
there's a
people.
preference.
Yeah, and I think that that's good. What's the definition of love? For me, love is true acceptance, non-judgment. And so you can love something, but then not want it to be a hindrance on your life. You can say, oh, I love you, I embrace you, I'm grateful for you, but you cause me trouble, so please keep your distance. I'd prefer not to be around you. But I think
Yeah.
sometimes, especially in the West, people are like afraid of loving things that don't bring them benefit because they feel like they need to hate it. But in my perspective, that's not really beneficial.
Yeah, I mean, it's almost a godlike love, you know, the observer God that loves everything in the whole universe. But that doesn't mean that, you know, she wants everything the way it is. You know, she's just accepting it and loving it.
Right. And if this is going over some of the listeners' head, just think of it more as a way of, you have a choice every single moment. You can accept what is, or you can reject it and resist. And you have free will to do as you choose in this moment. But I would suggest try to love it, because it usually makes things a lot better than when you hate it.
So do you measure your pain each day on a number scale, or how do you track how you're doing and what's causing, you know, have you found things that correlate with your headaches or?
Yeah, so I have this huge list, and I don't have it written down, but of triggers, certain things. And it's more just checking in with myself, constantly checking in with my intuition, and having this dialogue between myself and the pain, or myself and the headache, or intuition, or love, or the universe, whatever name you want to put on it. But I would say throughout the day, I'm constantly checking in, like, all right, how am I feeling? Do I need to take a rest? It's usually not what would it take to feel better, but it's a similar sense of, what do I need right now? What's the next best action? Is there a message for me? And usually that takes me to something that would be the same result as what would it take to feel better.
So it sounds like you're a lot more conscious of yourself and your environment than you were 2 years ago.
Absolutely. And that's why I've learned to become grateful for this pain, instead of saying, oh, can I swear on this? I don't want to.
Yeah, you can say whatever you want.
I guess if I have to ask, then I probably shouldn't swear. But if I'm like, oh, shoot, this pain is here, like, this sucks, screw this, F this, now I can't go to this meeting, or I was supposed to go to this bar tonight and perform and blah, blah, blah. Instead saying, like, there's pain. Like, this is a signal to, like, go into my psyche and meditate for a minute and really see what the message is in. This is the universe saying, hey, put your attention here, and basically allowing myself to be guided, instead of feeling like, I get to be the boss of my life and I get to do what I want to do. It's more of this, like, taking the back seat and just, like, riding the wave and seeing what happens.
Mm. Now, when you talked about the other beliefs you had about the pain, whether it's bad or it's not fair or all kinds of things you had, it's almost like those hold the pain in place.
Definitely. I don't think it's really productive. And I learned that after a year of, not wanting to put up with this, of feeling sorry for myself, feeling like a victim, feeling like, oh, I'm the bad guy, poor me, poor me. And, it's like my head is in pain, but my toe is completely fine, but I'm choosing to focus only on my head, and it takes a severe commitment. And like you said, a lot of conscious attention to be like, all right, there's pain in my head, but so what? Life goes on. The sun still shines. The clouds still move. The birds are still chirping. And I find it very unproductive to sit here and be like, oh, poor me, pity me, this sucks, rather to change perspectives for a bit, take best action. And then after a certain amount of time, I'm like, oh, I'm grateful. Like, yes, thank you, body, for allowing me this beautiful message so I can go and take a nap, or for giving me a good excuse to go get a massage 5 days a week and just relax, and just like turning it into my superpower instead of resisting it.
I think this is so interesting. And, even for listeners who don't have pain in their body, I think most people have bits of their business that maybe they're not happy with or cause them pain, or contractors or employees who they're not fully happy with. So I think this whole discussion, can be applied to messages we get from pieces of our business that, give us pain.
For sure. I had a client recently where there was one issue in the business. They had a customer that they didn't really want to deal with. They were asking for a refund, and, it was just like a big headache, literally. Not the ones that I get, but for this specific client. And just having a quick conversation with her and realizing that they had one bad client, but there's so many good things that are happening in the business. And she even had a couple of businesses where she could focus on the more creative aspect, but instead she was spending her whole day trying to figure out what to do with this one customer. It was consuming her. And I think that's just simple human psychology. We have this tendency to focus on the negative. And at one point in our life, it's a survival skill and it helped us. But in an area of our business, does it really do you good to focus on the one thing that went wrong? Or is it best to let that be and then focus on the 50 things that are going right?
That makes a lot of sense to me. Yeah, it's like what we focus on expands. And if we focus just on the painful part of our body or our business, we don't, help grow all the wonderful stuff that's going on in the rest of it, or heal. It's hard to heal that part of ourselves. I mean, you mentioned distractions and running away from the pain. How were you running away from your pain, Jeremy?
Geez, where do I start? Well, I think first it's this, not necessarily running away, but kind of like rejecting it in the way of like, oh, I have headaches. And it's like just wanting it to disappear, wanting it to be over, and just resisting it and feeling like, this is such a devastating experience. I just want to get out of this. So I was using a lot of marijuana, often caffeine. And I guess this wasn't necessarily running away, but it's more just trying to push through, which in a sense is kind of saying like, hey, headache, I see you, but I don't care. I'm just going to try to like bulldozer, instead of being like, all right, let's hear what you really want, what this message is. But besides that, there's been times I've been in so much pain. I've just like used tons of marijuana, psychedelics, breath techniques. And in a sense, it was running away, but it allowed me to achieve a lot of beautiful peak experiences. And those were very, very valuable for me. But eventually I reached this point where I realized like, I'm going up into the universe, out of space. One time I microdosed on mushrooms, and then I went into a float tank and I was doing Wim Hof breathing, and no joke, I like left my body. And when I opened my eyes, I was seeing lights everywhere, and it was like super crazy and profound. But then realizing that like, that's not the answer. I can't just spend my life trying to run away and have these outer body experiences. For me, the true test is living life, being in my body and like feeling it and really going into the pain and like diving deep into the sensation, going into my fears instead of running away, try to covering it up with a Band-Aid or a breathing technique or medicine or whatnot.
Yeah, and I think a lot of us can feel with that because, I know when I've had problems in my body or in my business, I've wanted to get distracted. I'll go on social media or I'll watch TV or I'll eat or drink alcohol or, myriad of things humans get up to distract from our pain. And for me, often when I love the pain and listen to it and hear whatever the message is, it just gets better and goes away,
Right. It's like there's this quote by Kyle Cease, who is one of my favorite. He's a stand-up comedian turned into a transformational speaker, and I just really love him. And he says, like, what if the goal of life wasn't to feel happy, it's just to feel? And like, what if every emotion or every drama or trouble or, quote, issue in your life wasn't there to be solved or taken care of, it's just there to be, and there's a lesson that comes in every single one of those. So when something comes our way, we try to push it aside, not get back. It's like this, feeling has a lesson to come and teach us. But if we're trying to cover it up or just get through it or smoke a cigarette and get drunk, then whatever it's trying to teach us is just going to go back. And then it's going to stay there. Like when we suppress it, it's just buried deep in wherever it goes. I'm not so sure where it goes.
Probably into our subconscious.
Our subconscious, the ether. Some people say we carry emotions in our body. I think there's partial truth to that, but no, scientists who claims I know everything, but it definitely exists. And I've been asking myself when I feel an emotion or even a strong headache or anxiety or fear, instead of thinking, how can I get out of this? How can I fix this? The question shifts to what is trying to emerge out of me? What's been buried deep in my psyche that's trying to make its way out? And how can I just see it, love it, and get out of the way so it can emerge? And that's worked very well for me so far.
That is a great question to ask. What is trying to emerge from me now, from this situation, from this particular disease?
Yeah. Maybe what would it take to let this emerge?
Yeah, there you go. That's a great question there, because I think these things are all messages from our intuition, from our bodies, and I have this mental image that I'm like a house or a temple, and the diseases or the pains are like little telegram mailmen. Remember in the old days, maybe you haven't ever received a telegram, but someone would rush up to your house with this telegram and they're all excited to give it to you because it's like an urgent message, hopefully good news, but whatever it is, it's news. And what I do when I'm distracting or, covering my ears from the pain or not looking at it is I'm grabbing that telegram man or woman and throwing them into the basement of my house before I can even read the telegram and closing the door on it. And now I've got a whole basement of my house filled with these telegram men and women. And they're some of them have been there for decades and they're getting a little smelly around the edges and they're kind of pooping in the corners of my basement. And they're, maybe rattling on the pipes in Morse code, to try and get me the message. But I just think it's an irritating noise in the heating system. But if I just open the door and love them and hear the message, and they in their gnarled hand that they've held this telegram for 20 years with the message, and they open it up and I can read it, and then they can go on their way and I don't have to get the pain anymore,
Yeah, I love that. Even to build on it, I feel like the person delivering the telegram is scary because we're never sure what the message is going to be. But when we open up and say, all right, it may be this huge, scary, fat, muscular, whatever the guy looks like, is intimidating. But if we can get over that fear, we realize that in the message, the telegram has this beautiful piece of advice or lesson. I like to live by this mantra: everything is here to help. And so just embracing every situation and knowing that there's going to be a deeper lesson behind it somewhere.
That's a good way to look. It's like constantly looking for the silver lining, in the clouds. If everything is here to help, you're kind of searching. You're like doing a Google search from your mind. Like, okay, here's this situation in my body or in my business today, but how is it trying to help me, and seeing that aspect of it.
Exactly.
And for me, in the case of pains in my body, it's often, sometimes there's a spiritual message or a life message there. I need to change something. Maybe I need to have a talk with a certain client, or, and adjust how we work together. Or maybe it's a message for me to take some rest and not try and do 27 things in the day, kind of dial it down a bit.
Exactly. And just for listeners who are trying to figure out, oh, what's the message of this situation or this fight I had, sometimes simple can be the most beautiful message possible. Sometimes the message is just like you said, rest, or take a break, or smile more. It's, it's not like you need to look deep for this esoteric meaning that's coming through. Sometimes it's just something as simple as like, hey, take a nap.
Naps are great, and they really help my intuition. So, I had another guest on the show a few months ago, Russell Smith, and he was getting some messages from his intuition. And he was living in China near that big port. And one day the port just blew up, and his whole apartment was basically destroyed. He nearly died along with his spouse. And it's because he'd been getting messages to move out of Beijing and go to somewhere else. He's moved to the mountains of China, where he now grows tea in the mountains. But, I think the thing with these messages is if we don't listen to them, they can come back even more painful or more chronic. If I ignore the problem with my bookkeeping system and it's kind of, I distract from it and I don't deal with it, next time it comes back, maybe it's an even bigger problem. So if I ignore the problems with my body, I get a worse disease. And I see that in other people. They have small irritating things, and then they come back more irritating. Eventually, the message gets so loud they have to hit the reset button and just die and reincarnate. But
yeah, sadly that happens. But I also see that in other situations is, people living in their head and their body has something to say. Their heart wants something to say. Their body and heart wants to transform. They want to evolve and do something bigger, but they just ignore it. And kind of a good example, it's like, those people who are in a relationship it's not so good. They know they got to get out of it, but for some reason they're self-sabotaging themselves. They're keeping themselves in this relationship until it gets worse and worse and worse. And then eventually the universe just kicks your ass and something happens. And then it's like, wow, I've been living a lie for the last 15 years or whatever. And so it's like you got to weigh your options. It's like a little bit of discomfort now, leaning into it in the change, or ignore it and then let that build and build and build. And then all of a sudden an avalanche will just come through, and who knows what will happen then.
Right, because relationships or businesses, they're a growing entity. You've got the two people in the relationship, but you've got the relationship itself is also a growing entity, and it's always changing every day. A relationship is not the same today as it was tomorrow. It's a different thing. It may only be slightly different, but over time it shifts. And the same with a business. My business is different today than it was yesterday, and it's different from what it was 10 years ago. So, and if I try and constrict it to stay the same and not let new growth come out of it and go in the direction it needs to go, that's where trouble can arise. And I think that's one of the reasons. Have you ever noticed that a lot of businesses only last a certain number of years? Even big businesses, they may only last like 100 years, but small businesses often only last like 30 years, if that. And it's because, someone there is not letting it evolve and emerge in the direction it needs to go.
Yeah, and a lot of time I see with entrepreneurs is at some point in their life, their business served them. It was their highest calling. It was super exciting, and it made them a bunch of money. But all of a sudden, like, they've outgrown their business, but they're still believing in this old story. Like, I'm just an e-commerce owner, or I don't want to trade my time for money, or I only do FBA and that's it. I don't want to do consulting. And their body, their heart wants to like grow and do something bigger and sell that or delegate it and do something bigger, but they're living in this past story of like, I'm my business, and if I let go of this, that's scary to the story that I've been telling myself. That's death to that story. And so maybe that kind of relates to what you're talking about. It's like then they lose the passion and they're not excited about it. So then it starts going down the drain. Then they start firing the wrong people. People start fighting, and all these things start to happen based on the fact that they're just holding on to something that is no longer fit for them.
Right. Whereas if they just let whatever needed to emerge, either that business would grow into something different that would make them happy and make them more money and make their staff and customers happier, or it's time to let that business go. It's very analogous to the relationship idea that, people hold on to a dead relationship long after it's expired.
Yeah, definitely.
And then they wonder why they're not happy. So I know you went 18 days deliberately not eating food, and you weren't like chained up to stop you from eating. You were around other people who were eating food.
Yes, I was.
Tell us why you chose to do this and what it did for you, man.
So after conventional and Western medicine couldn't really help with the pain in my head, it basically allowed me this opportunity to explore holistic healing modalities. A lot of stuff from Chinese medicine, Ayurvedic medicine, South America, all over the world. There's tons of stuff. We didn't have pills 200 years ago. People used natural plants and herbs. So this was kind of another one of these experiments that I've done. I've been to a lot of different healers and things that I've never even heard of or not sure why it works or that it works or how it works. And this was just a way for me to experiment and try to see if it would help this noggin of mine. So it's this protocol called the Master Fast. And I didn't just wake up one day and say, I'm going to do it. This was a conscious decision. I had a friend, Ye, in Chiang Mai, who did the fast, and she had a lot of success with it. And she had also introduced me to a breathing technique, which has been extremely instrumental and helpful for my healing journey. So she had a lot of trust from myself. And yeah, essentially I've done a 5-day water fast. I did a 3-day apple fast, a 10-day papaya fast, or papayahuasca, as I like to call it. and basically I was getting stomach aches all the time as well. And my intuition was saying like, hey, it's time for like a fast, to cleanse. We gotta mix it up. And I'm not talking about like eating Indian food and then pizza and getting a stomach ache. I'm talking about I would have papaya and mango for breakfast, and then 10 minutes later I'd be on my bed with essential oil on my stomach, like getting a massage from my girlfriend, rubbing my stomach. Like it was bad. And at the time, there's 2 wolves inside of my mouth, my psyche, not my mouth. It's like the Native American, parable. It's like there's 2 wolves. One is greedy and hate, and the other has love and wants to grow. And the wolf that survives is the one that you feed. So I'm getting these stomach aches on my bed, and then there's this voice like, "Oh, you freaking idiot! You have headaches, and now you screwed up your diet. And now my head hurts, and now my stomach hurts. My whole body's screwed up. I'm never gonna get better." And then there's this other voice that's like, "Hey, finally the head gets a break and the stomach can be the one who's holding you back, like an excuse to lay down and relax and a new sense of pain, a new sensation in a different part of the body." And so after basically 2 months of just like getting a lot of stomach aches after eating like clean and healthy food, I knew it was time. So I did my research. I looked up a lot of resources. More importantly, what I think is most important is having success stories, because to me that helps like believe that it can actually work. Instead of just reading about it, talking to people, reading testimonials that people like went through it, they had their struggles, but it really helped them. And so, yeah, I did this Master Fast challenge, and I kept a vlog on it, which is I think how you found out about it. And
yep.
Yeah, 18 days without any food, just drinking tea, grape juice, and this plasma pudding, it's called. Lots of enemas, some tinctures. I did a colonic, lots of breath work and other tools mixed in, but I'm really happy I did it, and it scared a lot of my friends and family, and they reached out. We're like, "Hey, you got to stop this. You're crazy." And I was like, "Thank you, but it's my body." So yeah, 18 days without food, it shattered a lot of my belief system about food and nutrition and energy. And I'm honestly still integrating that and figuring out the best way to eat food. But it really, I would like to say, like you said, with the Telegram deliverers, right? So imagine I had all these people delivering telegrams throughout my life about food of like, hey, you're binge eating. Hey, every time you get stoned, you eat all the Oreos, or all these things. Whenever you get drunk, you eat your emotions and you consume 4,000 calories after 2 a.m. and then you wake up and hate yourself. And all these messages. And I've just been putting them in the basement. And I feel like doing this fast, I went down into the basement, turned on all the lights, and then I was just like, holy shit, these people have been living in my basement for my entire life. And so now the struggle has been integrating back to real life when I've like gone upstairs and I'm like, all right, there's a shit ton of people in my basement that I need to get out of my life. And being okay with the fact that like they're not going to disappear overnight, like one at a time, just got to embrace them, accept them, love myself for where I'm at, and just, love my life and love food instead of judging myself based on these past experiences and behaviors.
So I've got so many questions about this. It's so interesting. I mean, first of all, what kind of beliefs did you have about food before you did this 18 days without eating?
It's hard to remember, but you need 2,000 calories a day to live. The food pyramid. I knew the food pyramid was somewhat bullshit, but I was like, all right, there's something there. Balanced diet, which means protein, carbs. I had a belief that sugar was the devil because I did ketogenic diet for a while. So I was like, oh, sugar's bad. I can't have too much of it. The belief that I needed to eat throughout the day, every 2 hours to keep the metabolism going. Water, the fact I believe that I needed to consume, 8 glasses of water or whatever people recommend, because a big part of this fast is dry fasting. So the longest dry fast I did was 35 hours, and dry means no food, no liquid, even intensely, which I did, is no contact with liquid, no washing your hands, no shower. I did brush my teeth because I don't want people to have to deal with bad breath.
I have a bit of a personal question here. During those 36 hours, did you still go to the bathroom?
Yeah. I peed a couple times. And it's very, smelly. It's a strong fragrance, but that's when the kidneys are cleansing. I don't have the complete science to back this up, but I can say from experience that when you dry fast, one, the spiritual experience is out of this world. And you can look at the Bible, Jesus, Muhammad, even Moses. A lot of people have, in the past, prophets have had like these spiritual experiences in the desert, which is not the main reason I did it, but it's quite a nice bonus when I'm like looking out at the trees and I'm like, wait, did I take mushrooms or what's going on here? So that's one component. But when you dry fast, it's like your body, it turns completely inwards. It starts to like eat itself. And then in that comes the healing. So a lot of times it's really detoxing from the inside out, and then you can pee out things. I guess I'm gonna stop there because I haven't like read up on dry fasting to the point I'd like to, where I can like share, but there's tons of information online, and yeah, that's a big belief system. But also the biggest one that I'm still working with, and I don't want to offend people, but it's just the fact that like we're all addicted to food. I'm addicted to food. I can't speak for other people.
I think 99.9999% of the people on the planet are addicted to food. Just look at how big the restaurant industry is, man, and the supermarket industry and the farming industry. Who, by the way, the food pyramid was created by the farming industry, in case you didn't know.
I'm pretty sure that most scientific data that we have about food is backed by the people who make money off of it, which is a sad reality to live with. And it hurt. Like I felt this intense pain when I'm, drinking grape juice all day for, a couple bucks. And I'm thinking here, like they're starving people all around the world, but you have this Western society that's eating 4 meals a day, snacking, having these huge, cocktail parties with food and crackers everywhere. And just a sad, but also a little hopeful realization that like there's plenty of resources to feed the entire planet. There's just these egos stuck in the way trying to make money off of it. And that hurt. That hurt so much. My heart felt so much for the world and then to look in the mirror and look at myself and be like, wow, for 25 years, that was you. And it was just like, I'm pointing the finger at myself, or pointing one finger at other people and pointing 3 back at myself, and realizing that like it starts with me. And that was a big belief that I'm honestly still, dealing with when I go out and just look at how people treat food, and how, like for a practical situation, if you think about like right before you eat, the anticipation, you build it up, you're super excited. Oh, you smell it and you wait at your table and you order, oh, is it going to come? A couple more minutes. And then it comes and it's like, wow, there it is, these onion rings or salad or grilled eggplant with teriyaki sauce, whatever it is. And just think about how that first bite is like so delicious and you savor it and you appreciate it and people are very present. But what about the 10th bite? By the 10th bite, most people are just like, oh, so tell me more about last weekend. They're just like shoving it in their mouths, which is completely okay. I'm not here to try to change anybody or judge because I do the same thing. But just to be aware of that and realize that like we enjoy the first bite, but after that, it's just like we become, I don't want to speak in we. I become like this animal. It's just like, I'm no cookie pasta, yum, 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 yum. And then I get to the point where I'm like, oh, hey, I'm not hungry anymore, but I don't quite hate myself how full I am. So I'm going to keep eating a little bit more, eating to this point of like full. I'm so full that there's no more I can eat, instead of eating until like, hey, I'm actually pretty satisfied. So I'm going to stop now because then I can still function as a human being. And it's a sensitive
I think
topic.
listening to my body while I eat, and I had a conversation with Barbara Fernandez, who you may know. She used to do a lot of nutrition stuff in her previous business. And she recommended not talking while you eat. Don't talk with other people. Pay attention to the food for every single bite. Make it a meditative experience if you can, and do the talking separately, because it's hard to pay attention to our body.
Yeah, definitely. I've actually, one of the things I've also explored in this healing journey is silent retreats. I've been on, I think, 7 or 8 different meditation retreats, all silent, from 1 day to 10 days. And yeah, it's like you're super mindful, which each bite you're like, you can appreciate the food. You notice how many ingredients go into each food. It's like, if you were to sit down at your next meal and really count how many ingredients go into that, and think about how many people touched those ingredients and like grew them or picked them or sent them to the store. It's like, there's so many different things to be grateful for.
There are, and that's a good practice to do before a meal, to like bless the food and bless all the people and animals and plants who sacrificed themselves or were sacrificed by other people usually. It's not like the plant suddenly said, oh yeah, let me cut off my fruit for you. It's some human came along and pulled that off, but I can still be grateful for that.
And for listeners who are like, oh, silence is scary, that's stupid, I want to be social and talk to my family, that's completely fine. A compromise that I really like that I got from Thich Nhat Hanh, Vietnamese Zen master, is he suggests to talk only about food. So talk about how delicious the food that you're eating. Talk about, hey, how are the mashed potatoes? Oh, they're good. Oh, add some salt. Aren't these delicious? Because then at least you're talking about the present and the things that's going on.
Here's the other thing I've learned from more conscious eating and fasting is that when I have that, how sometimes you have an urge for potato chips or some other food, and often it's only one aspect of that. Maybe I just need more salt, and it wasn't the potato chips at all. I just needed a few grains of salt and I'd have been fine, or whatever the thing is. So
ding, ding, ding. Yeah, exactly. Your body craves something and then the mind takes control. One of my friends said every time he craves sugar, he's really just thirsty, and he drinks a glass of water and the craving goes away.
Oh, that if there's nothing else you get from this conversation, that if you're feeling shitty, whether it's feeling hungry or feeling sad or whatever, drink a bunch of water until you have to go pee. 50% of the time that will solve the issue. And another 30% of the time taking a nap will solve the issue. So,
what about the other 20%?
That's where you have to use what would it take,
Yeah. What would it take to make this 20% the best?
There you go. But really, we are chronically dehydrated as a society. If the pee is coming out not every few hours, and if it's dark and not light colored, you're probably dehydrated.
Yeah, and honestly, I'm experimenting with this myself, because I used to be, especially everyone's like, oh, you have headaches, you're dehydrated, drink more water. So for a year and a half, I was just chugging water, nonstop, drinking a lot of soda water, even herbal teas. But since this master fast, I've been drinking less water and I've been feeling better. But I'm still I'm still getting hydrated because I'm eating a ton of fruit.
Ah,
And I love it because fruit has that, it's naturally filtered through the trees. And so it's
mm-hmm.
this like healthy way of getting water instead
Mm.
of drinking some of the water, coming through the tap or at the store, which sometimes isn't the healthiest. Who knows what's in that, but I've noticed my body rejecting some of the water at 7-Eleven here in Thailand. Not that I'm like getting sick, but I feel like, all right, there's something not so natural in here. And I've just been
Oh,
going with
if you
coconut
go
water.
into studies of bottled water, they've kind of done these, measurements of the chemicals in bottled water. Some bottled water has a shitload of chemicals in it, from the plastic in the bottle that's been in the sunlight and it leached into the water or other issues. So there's a wide variation between waters. I mean, personally, I just buy a water filter and filter the tap water. That seems to give pretty good results. But
Nice. And again, I know we're
I
talking
also,
about a lot of, sorry, I just want to make a disclaimer.
yeah.
Like a lot of this stuff, it's scary, especially when people are like, oh, what do you mean? Don't drink water, only eat fruit? Like, that's crazy. It's like, it's okay. I'm not saying you have to believe anything we say. My advice is trust your body. Listen to your body. Your body knows best. The body wants to live. It wants to thrive. It wants to grow. It wants to heal. And so even if your body says, don't listen to me, listen to the body.
Absolutely. Listen to your own body, your own intuition in all of this stuff. And I would say from a medical point of view, my research has said, 30 days of not eating food doesn't cause any health problems. People don't start having health challenges until about 50 or 60 days of not eating food. That's when people on hunger strikes start having kidney failure and other issues. But 30 days is no problem for any human being to go without food. Or certainly no
Yeah, so
Western human being who's been on a good diet. I guess if you were already starving, it might be an issue. But
that's what the research says in the findings. But this master fast, they suggest starting with 108 days. That's like
wow.
the benchmark. Like I did 18 and then I stopped
Yeah.
and everyone's saying like, hey, you didn't give it a long enough shot to really heal the headaches. And so I'm living in this
108
dichotomy.
days.
Yeah, I'm like talking to my friends, hey, I haven't eaten 2 weeks. They're like, are you crazy? And then in the Master Fast Facebook group, I'm like, day 18, and people are like, day 75. Finally getting down to those, all the parasites are coming out. And it's just to show like my belief system just cracked.
But just to be clear, that the Master Fast, you're drinking, what did you call it? Plasma, plum, something?
Yeah, plasma pudding. That's what it's
Pudding,
called.
yeah.
It's grape juice, psyllium husk, activated charcoal, and bentonite clay. And then it turns
Okay.
into pudding when you let it sit.
Right. Sounds
So that's what you're
yummy-licious.
eating. But it actually is quite delicious and really helps, clear the
So
bowels.
you have some nutrients coming in, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, you're consuming maybe 1,000 calories a day through the grape juice.
Oh,
Um,
okay.
but then it's I don't know. The science has not been figured out. Like, and I asked in the group, and it's like, how would they make money if they were to prove that, hey, you can live off just grape juice? Like what is the restaurant industry going to do when people are like, oh, I don't need McDonald's or fast food or any pizza. I can just drink juice all day, And so that I see why the media wants to shut this down, and it's scary for nutritional science these days. But I'm determined to like continue researching and exploring and figuring out what works best for me. I don't feel like it's my calling to, shit on the world and tell everybody to start changing their eating habits. But for me personally, I know there's something there. So I'm willing to continue making lifestyle changes and exploring that.
Well, yeah, I mean, listen to your own body, and notice how your body's feeling when you eat things or don't eat things. I mean, I notice when I eat different foods, sometimes I feel good afterwards. Sometimes I need to take a serious nap after eating certain foods. So,
Yeah, that's been the sad thing for me as I've gone back to eating these last 2-3 weeks, is realizing that food, which in my old belief I thought is supposed to give me energy, and then facing the reality that a lot of the things I'm eating makes me more tired. Like I
yeah,
eat it and then I feel good for 20 minutes and I want to lay down,
yeah.
versus drinking juice or eating fruit where it's like you eat it, you feel light, and then you have more energy. And
Yeah.
it's been hard. I've had to let go a lot of these, food cravings and addictions of things that I thought were good for me, but really they were just holding me back.
Well, I mean, I fast 1 day a week, and I've done that for about 5 years. And
Mm.
I often, some fast days, and I'm fasting for 24 to 36 hours. And I'm drinking water and tea when I do that, but no food. And when I first did it, I would often get a detox reaction, and my body took the opportunity to get a bunch of toxins out. I felt like I was coming down with a cold or whatever, but really it was just toxins coming out. But now I actually feel full of energy often, and I'll get more work done on that fast day than I do on eating days, because of what you're saying, the eating often is an energy drain.
Right. Well, there's two things that brings up. One is it's really tough to decipher what is a detox symptom and what is a reaction of like things are getting worse. And I'm not sure what the difference is. Maybe the intuition is best. But for me, telling myself every time I feel pain, it's like, this is a detox. My body is healing, instead of saying, oh, this is getting worse. Subtle change, but like it's made a huge difference for me. And the second thing, I think the biggest aspect of the fast is just simply your belief. Like maybe the first couple times you did a fast, at least for myself, it's like, oh, I'll keep the day open. I don't want to plan anything. Now I plan the most on my fast days, because I'm like, I'm going to have abundant energy. I'm planning for success. I have this belief that, hey, I'm going to have more energy. Instead of setting myself up to have a lazy day in bed, I'm going out, I'm scheduling coaching calls, I'm doing my emails, creating something, performing, singing, whatever. And for me, that stems from the belief that like, I know that I can do this.
Yeah. Well, and I think everyone listening does fast every single night, for how many hours you go. Now, some people fast for 12 hours every night. They eat dinner at like 6 p.m. and then they have breakfast, whenever 7 a.m. That's 13 hours actually, if you did that, right? And that's why we call it break fast, right? Breakfast is breaking the fast from the night. So everyone listening does do a bit of fasting. And that's why I think sleep is rejuvenating for many reasons, but one of the reasons is we're just not eating for 12 hours.
Yeah, exactly.
And the body has a chance to repair things, So, and I've done quite a lot of fasting myself, and I think that's helped with my intuition and hearing things better. I haven't done 18 days, but I have done 10 days of juiced fasting. And I also did a vision quest where I did 3 nights and 4 days of dry fast, so no food, no drink.
Yeah, what was that like?
It was pretty fucking intense, man. Because like, how are we gonna possibly, when I get a dry mouth, when I get hungry, when I get really thirsty, what if I get sick? But we were in a group of about 50 people in the mountains of Bolivia. It was like a Native American kind of vision quest kind of thing. And we cut down this tree and planted it in a circle in the middle and kind of danced around it to native music. Every hour we danced for like 20 or 30 minutes, and then you rest. And every day we sun-gazed at dawn and dusk. So that means looking at the sun for a few minutes while it's low on the sky and it's not painful, to take in the prana from the sun. So, and that helps too, because I'm curious, when you did this fast, did you find you were taking energy in other ways than the food?
Yeah, absolutely. I was doing a lot of breath work. It's called the Buteyko method. It's this breath work founded by a Russian scientist. Also, surprisingly, enemas gave me so much energy. They still do. And I don't know why, but it's like I'll have a horrible headache, put a bunch of water up my butt, meditate, flush it out, and then I'm like pumped up. It's like taking an espresso shot. There's something going on there. And
you didn't take the espresso shot in the Emina, right?
No, but I put a lot of other things up that
what?
way. I did coffee for a while, green coffee, grape juice, some of the tinctures, tea. As long as it's filtered and it's super clean, and some people may disagree with this, but from my experience, as long as it's not poisonous, it's ending up kind of in the same place. It's just your body's accepting it. It's just you don't have the filtering going on. It's not going through the colon and the kidneys. So it can be very dangerous if there's something that's, toxic. But as long as it's extremely clean, I've found no problem. Baking soda, another one that can help with diarrhea. Sorry, is this a business podcast? What are we talking about?
It is a business podcast, but I think we have open minds. I mean, there's a lot of things that get held in the intestines, I've done a whole kind of, what's it called, colonic irrigation, where I guess that's a more advanced enema thing, where there's a machine that slowly lets the warm water in, and there's a way for the stuff to come out.
Yeah, those are great and highly recommended for people fasting. It's a good way to flush out the system, and it's nice. You get people massaging their stomach.
Yeah, in Thailand, you'll get people rubbing coconut oil on your tummy and massaging the intestines to release the stuff. Because if you haven't thought of it, some people think of the intestines as just like a tube. It's not a tube. It's like this crinkly thing that's got all these crevices and nooks and crannies in. And because it's got the large intestine has to reabsorb all the water from the food before it comes out, you know. I mean, you know, I don't want to gross people out too much, but if you've ever seen vomit, it's a pretty liquid state that's in the stomach when you first eat food. And by the time the stuff comes out the other end, it's usually pretty solid, or hopefully it is. So there's some reabsorption of all the nutrients. But with all those crevices in the intestine, stuff can stay in there for decades. So, and does. So I think doing something to clean that out can release a lot of toxins from your body, which I see could affect your headaches if they're related to toxins in your blood system. And
it's all connected.
And here's the other thing with the whole tummy and intestines, there are a lot of neurons in the intestines. You know, I think there are actually more neurotransmitters in the intestines than there are in the brain, which is why if you ever seen the antidepressant pills, you know, there's that Zoloft and all that. If you read the small print, they say, you know, this may cause problems with your digestion. And the reason is you've got all these neurotransmitters in your intestines. So the same drug that tries to affect your brain is also affecting your intestines. So we have in effect, we have a belly brain down there in our intestines.
So is that why a lot of them lead to like appetite suppressants? Like I've taken a couple antidepressants and Adderall for a while, and I just remember I was not hungry at all.
Yeah, because it probably shifted the neurons in your intestines. I mean, you know how if someone gets punched in the stomach, it can knock them out. You know, if they get hit in the solar plexus, that can actually knock a boxer out. That's because they've got a brain down there. When we say we have gut feelings, we literally do have intelligence down there. So that's why the idea of looking at food consciously and fasting can affect so many things in our intuition and, you know, in our consciousness.
Yeah, and just to bring that back to people who are like, all right, I hear you guys, but you're talking about crazy stuff and whatever. Like there are so many more practical benefits of fasting. You know, people intermittent fast. I noticed I had laser focus when I was on this fast. Like I'm waking up, even if it's nothing intense, even if I'm like, all right, I'm eating breakfast from 7 to 8, but then I'm going to fast from 8 to 12, and then I'll eat. It's like in those windows where I know I'm not eating, it's so much easier to focus, where if I'm not committed, all of a sudden I can be like, oh, I could go for some chips right now. Oh, should I make another tea? And for me, I noticed like I was able to work so much more sharply and to have that laser focus. And also, if you can trust yourself that you can go without food for a long period of time, you don't make these excuses like, oh, it's 1 o'clock and I'm getting hangry, so I can't keep working. It's like, no, relax. Everything's going to be okay. And just trusting that you can continue working and it's not going to be a hindrance.
Well, I know one entrepreneur, he only eats in the evening. He doesn't eat breakfast or lunch. He just eats dinner. And he said he does the most focused work during the day because his mind isn't foggy from eating food. So many ways to take this. So I'm curious, you said you still had family meals when you were fasting. Were you still eating with other people? I mean, you weren't eating, but you were at a social event where other people were eating?
Yeah, I had a couple. So the hardest one was probably my brother, Nate, who was on the podcast, a couple months ago.
Yeah.
And one of his employees made a dish. She's from Ukraine, and she like cooked, and it smelled amazing. And like I wanted to go and be a part of it. And one of the huge emotions that came up during this fast is like, eating is such a social thing. I felt this loneliness. I felt this exile anxiety, like, wow, I'm not accepted anymore because I'm not going out to cafes and eating with people. So it was really challenging. Essentially, like, just smelling all the food, it was just like so tempting. And like, luckily I was super committed and I was there with my girlfriend who was also doing the fast, but it basically put me in a situation where I was just like suffering every single moment. I was just like, I know this food isn't good for me. I know I'm not going to eat it, but it was just like putting myself through hell. And at the same time, all the other people were eating, and it's just like no big deal. There's like, food is so good. And I was sitting there on the side like, wow, like why did I come here? And that was only one time, and that was like a couple of days into the fast. But after that, I ended up like going to certain cafes and stuff, and the cravings just kind of completely went away. And I didn't like purposely want to put myself in environments where like everybody's eating, but I was able to be in social situations where there was food around, and it's just a choice. And the mind game that I was playing, it's just like, hey, I could eat that, but I know that's not going to make me feel good. It's like only this mind that creates this craving that's like, oh, this is going to make me feel better, or it's going to give me more energy. But because I've been dealing with these headaches for so long, even if I had a headache and I'm like, oh, if I eat popcorn, maybe it'll make me feel good for 10 seconds, but the headache's not going to get any better. So for me, it was just having this like firm commitment and like dedicating myself to this fast and being completely disciplined and reminding myself that these cravings are just, they're coming and going. It's just like a thought. This too shall pass.
Yeah. Well, and I find when I first started fasting, I did find being around other people eating was challenging. Now I don't find it a problem. I mean, I can appreciate the food and the smell and other people enjoying it. I don't need to eat it. I mean, it's the same. I gave up drinking alcohol like 11 years ago, and I can socialize with other people who are drinking alcohol. I don't have the urge anymore to drink alcohol. Whereas when I first gave it up, I did. So
yeah, that's another game. We talked about smell. At first, it was like, oh, I smell it, and the instant thought, again, like we talked about before, it's, oh, what can't I do? What's the pain? So it's like, oh, those cookies smell so good, I can't eat them. Instead of just saying, wow, those cookies smell so good, and just appreciating the smell. Like, wow, what a blessing it is to smell chocolate and vanilla and sugar, and just appreciate that smell instead of feeling like, oh, I'm suffering so much. Just see it for what it is, or smell it for what it is.
Well, and you're getting 2 out of the 3 senses there. You're seeing the food, you're smelling it, you're just not tasting it. So, and to be honest, I find with food, the smell is far more important than the taste. I don't know if you've ever eaten when you've had a bad cold and you couldn't smell. Food doesn't taste, it doesn't taste as good. The smell is 90% of the joy in the mouth for me. I mean, there is the texture thing and, there's a bit of taste thing, but really smell is the key. And the appearance.
Have you tried playing around with that? Like smelling one food and then eating another? And
what I have done is this was when I was in grade school. We did a thing where we were blindfolded and we had our noses clipped. And then we all brought in, it was like a show and tell. It was a taste and tell. And so you bring in like a cube of cheese or a cube of onion or a cube of garlic or a cube of bread or, different things that basically were moderately similar in texture. And then we try eating them and see if we could identify what they were. And we fucking couldn't. It's like you're munching down on this onion, but is it onion or is it apple? It's like, well, it basically seems the same to me. But when you open your nose again, you're like, whoa, I just ate an onion. So yeah, it's more complicated. But it's interesting that sometimes in social situations, other people may be concerned when we do things that are a little different. And that's often the same for when we first become entrepreneurs. I don't know if you had this when you became an entrepreneur, that some people in your family are like, oh, why don't you get a real job? Why don't you get something secure? And
yeah, definitely. People just get a little bit uncomfortable because they're not sure. It's like you're stepping outside of their idea of what's available to them. And sometimes that can be scary because it threatens their decisions. If you're doing something different, if they admit that that's the right thing, then that's basically telling themselves that what they're doing is not right.
Well, and if I'm not confident in my choice in my entrepreneurial journey or my fasting journey or whatever it is, hearing those things echoes back the beliefs I have in my own mind that, hey, this is a dangerous thing or whatever, instead of looking at the positive aspects.
Right. And I've even taken that a step further where it's like, now I'm an entrepreneur, but I've been doing a lot of digital detoxes and it's like going offline. And then entrepreneurs are like, hey, that's crazy. You're missing out on sales. You're not working hard enough. And again, it's just this like stepping into the unknown and embracing this idea of nonconformity and just doing whatever works best for you. Because I realize that when I take a couple days offline, or I just went on a 5-day yoga retreat, no Wi-Fi, no electronics at all. When I get back into it, I have so much more enthusiasm, so much more energy and excitement. And so I just want to challenge people out there to just like experiment, take risks, and don't feel like they just need to do what everyone else is doing, because life begins outside of your comfort zone, and that's where the magic can be found.
Absolutely. I mean, I do a 7 to 10 day yoga retreat without email twice a year. I just came back from one, and I tell my clients, hey, I'm going on this retreat. It's not like I disappear, so they know I'm not there, and obviously I don't schedule calls during that time, but it's all fine, I mean. So I know you're doing a digital detox retreat in Brazil in a few months. That's a 4 or 5 day retreat, or?
Yeah, so it's February 22nd to the 26th. If you want to come hang out, it's in the beautiful mountains, 3 hours outside of Rio. We've got indoor rock climbing wall, a natural cold spring, a pool. We're going to be doing yoga, some meditation. We're going to have some speaker sessions, fireside masterminds. It's just going to be a blast. And it's going to be a chance for innovators, entrepreneurs, people working in tech who feel like they know they need a break, but they kind of feel like they have this FOMO and they're not sure, if I go offline for a week, what am I going to do? So we're bringing people together so we can hang out, grow, have fun, talk business, talk life, all in an environment where we're not distracted by our phones and Wi-Fi.
Wow, sounds amazing. And we'll put the link to that in the show notes. I think it's digitaldetox.camp. I guess that's one of those new extensions. Instead of .com, it's .camp.
Yeah. So, if anyone has any questions too, feel free to reach out, and I can chat and see if it's a good fit. I don't know where these listeners are coming from, but you do need a visa for Brazil. So if you're interested, start applying for the visa soon. But yeah, we'd love to have you. And also we're going to do some Wim Hof breathing and a lot of deep stuff. It's basically just going to be like, a business conference meets like camp, plus like using your intuition and connecting with nature and yourself and other people. So I'm super excited. And
so I know you have another call you're going to, but before we go, why are you proud to use your business intuition, Jeremy?
That's a good question. Let me ask my intuition. Because I feel like it really brings out the best version of myself, and it allows me to run a business from my heart rather than my head. And the implications of that are serving the world first and doing what's best for my client, for my team, for myself, and for the world, instead of just trying to make a bunch of money.
That is beautiful. I mean, that's pretty similar to my What Would It Take revolution, where, people access their intuition openly in their business. They're going to make more money, be happier, be less stressed. And also, I think if everyone in business used their intuition, we'd have less dumbass decisions that hurt other people on the planet. So,
amen.
Yeah. So what would it take to make business intuition more openly used this year?
Well, I feel I could plug my coaching services, but I don't really want to be too self-promotional right now. But if someone's
we'll plug those in the show notes for you.
Yeah. Well, working with a coach helps, having accountability. So I know that's what you do as well. And I help people do that as well. But I think also it's finding other like-minded businesses to surround yourself with that run from the heart. If you're surrounded by people that are just chasing the next niche or trying to figure out how crypto is working and they're just chasing the money, that's fine. That works for a lot of people. But I feel like in order to, raise consciousness and build businesses from the heart, it takes a collective, it takes a community, and it takes support and having people around you that are going to really bring you up. And instead of asking, how much money is that going to make you, ask you, how's that going to make you feel? Is that what your heart wants, or is that what your wallet wants? And just asking these reflective questions and surrounding yourself with people who have the same goals and values as you.
Great. Well, it's been fabulous talking with you. If people want to find you online, what are the best ways to do that?
Jeremy Ginsburg on YouTube. I have a vlog. I put a lot of my music there. Instagram at Jeremy Ginsburg as well. My website is out of date, but hopefully I'll update that. But you can be creative and find me. I'm pretty accessible. But before we get off, I just want to honor you and just say that you're fucking awesome. And I really love what you do with this podcast and for spending all this time. And I don't even know if you make money off of this, just for like putting yourself out there and really helping the world and having conversation like this. I just think it's a beautiful way to help people and give back and teach others to step into their power. So thank you for inviting me, and thank you for just having the show.
Well, thanks. I feel all warm in my heart, you saying that. Currently, I don't make a lot of money from it, but I do put a lot of time and energy into it because I think it's an important shift that needs to happen in the world. And it's certainly helped me to use my intuition in my business. So I'd like to help other people too. If you want to find all those links and the transcript from this episode, you can find it at the intuitiveleadershipmastery.com website, where you can find other back episodes as well. So thanks for coming on the show, Jeremy.
Thanks for having me. Much love, and see you in Brazil, maybe.
I ended the recording there. I would have answered on air, actually. My father's coming to visit me.
Yeah, I know you're not coming.
So I'm not coming, man.
All right, well, thank you. I know we both have calls. Yeah, much love.
Yeah.
Let me know.
And maybe we can do another conversation another time, talk about some of the other things and get that song to go in there.
Oh, yeah, sure, whatever. Thank you so much. Hope this was good for you. And
it was fabulous. It was great conversation. A lot of interesting thoughts there, man.
Cool. All right. Have a good one. Happy Tuesday.
Bye. You too.